A 65-year-old mother cried at her son's grave while her daughter-in-law laughed. The next day, as Sarah walked toward the small cemetery, her eyes fixed on the ground, she couldn't shake the image of her only son, Michael, lying in a coffin covered with white flowers. Pain she felt was intense and deep, as if a black hole had opened in her chest, sucking away all her hope and joy. At 65, Sarah hadn't expected to face such a devastating loss, and grief enveloped her like a heavy cloak. Upon arriving at the site, she encountered a group of people. Some were familiar faces, while others were only vaguely recognizable, but all were united by the sorrow that hung in the air. The murmur of whispering voices and the sound of sobs filled the atmosphere. Sarah was distant, lost in her own thoughts. The priest, with his serious demeanor, began the ceremony, and Sarah felt her heart tighten as she heard the words of farewell. Michael was a wonderful man, the priest began, his voice echoing in the silence. He brought joy to all of us. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to remember the happy moments she had shared with Michael. He had always been her pride, the son she raised with so much love and dedication. But now, everything felt in vain. As the priest concluded his words, she approached the coffin, kneeling and placing her hand on the lid. "My dear son, why did you have to leave me so soon?" Tears streamed down her wrinkled face as she spoke, her voice choked with pain. It was then that she noticed something strange. In the back of the crowd, her daughter-in-law, Jessica, was laughing and chatting with a friend. The cheerful sound seemed like an insensitive echo amid the sadness surrounding her. Sarah raised her head, incredulous, and her eyes met Jessica. The woman, with her long hair and a smile that didn't match the situation, looked at Sarah and, realizing she was being watched, stifled her laughter. But the expression on Sarah's face left no room for doubt. Pain she felt quickly transformed into confusion and indignation. How can she laugh at a moment like this? Sarah murmured to herself, feeling the heat of anger rise. It wasn't just the loss of her son that was destroying her, but also her daughter-in-law's insensitivity. This is a nightmare, she thought as she tried to look away. After the ceremony, Sarah stepped away from the guests, seeking a moment of solitude. The cool breeze of the afternoon brushed her face. The feeling of peace seemed distant. As she walked among the graves, something caught her attention. A small paper box left strategically to draw her gaze. With trembling hands, she picked it up and opened it carefully. Inside was a yellowed letter, written in her son's unmistakable handwriting. If you are reading this, it's because before we continue with this story full of twists and turns, don't forget to follow our channel so you don't miss any of our exciting narratives. We have many amazing stories to share with you. There are secrets that need to be uncovered, and I need you to be strong. The words were enigmatic and sent a chill down Sarah's spine. What could Michael have meant? What did he know that she didn't? Sarah's mind began to whirl, a storm of questions flooding her thoughts. She tucked the letter into her pocket, determined to uncover what lay behind her son's words. Jessica's laughter still echoed in her mind, and with each passing moment, the feeling grew that there was something dark surrounding her daughter-in-law. Why was she acting this way? What did Michael know about Jessica that he hadn't shared with her? With a heavy heart and a confused mind, Sarah decided she wouldn't rest until she discovered the truth. Whatever was behind that inappropriate laughter, she was determined to find answers. And even amidst the pain of loss, a spark of courage began to shine within her. A new journey was about to begin, and Sarah was resolved not to let the shadow of her son's death consume her. The next day, Sarah was home, exhausted both physically and emotionally. It was then that Jessica entered the room, with a determined expression and an air of urgency. Her high heels echoed on the wooden floor, breaking the solemn silence of the house. Sarah looked up, surprised and unsettled by her daughter-in-law's presence. "Sarah, we need to talk about Michael's inheritance," Jessica said, sitting down in front of her. There was a cold glint in her eyes that made Sarah uncomfortable. "Inheritance? Jessica, we just buried him. This is not the time for that," Sarah replied, trying to maintain her composure. "I understand that this is hard for you, but life goes on. We need to sort this out as soon as possible," Jessica insisted, her voice firm. "I've already hired a lawyer to take care of everything. He can expedite the process of transferring the assets to my name." Sarah was in shock. "You hired a lawyer? Without even talking to me first?" "Yes, Sarah. We need to be practical. Michael would have wanted us to handle everything quickly without unnecessary complications," Jessica said, smiling in a way that seemed more like a challenge than a gesture of sympathy. "This is a disrespect to Michael's memory. We are all in mourning, and you're only thinking about material possessions?" Sarah stood up, feeling the heat of anger rise. "It's not just about material possessions. I was his wife. I have a right to all of this," Jessica shot back, standing up as well. "You know that Michael always wanted me to be taken care of. Michael always cared about everyone, not just you, and I won't allow you to take advantage of this situation," Sarah said, trying to control the shaking in her hands. "Let's see what the lawyer says," Jessica said coldly, walking toward the door. "I just want to ensure." As soon as Jessica left the room, Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. Jessica's audacity in trying to expedite the inheritance process right after the funeral was further proof of her insensitivity and possible ulterior motives. Determined to protect her son's legacy, Sarah knew she needed to act quickly and decisively. Days later, Sarah decided to go to the cemetery, which was shrouded in a dense morning fog, making the atmosphere even heavier for Sarah, who found herself kneeling in front of her son's grave. The flowers she had brought were fresh. Her heart felt like a devastated field, lifeless. She looked at the tombstone. The engraved letters seemed to glow unsettlingly under the weak sunlight trying to emerge. Tears streamed down her wrinkled face, each drop bringing forth the unbearable pain of loss. But as Sarah focused on her mourning, a peculiar symbol caught her attention. It was a six-pointed star. It was a small design etched on the side of the tombstone, something only she and Michael understood, since in the past her son had a necklace with this symbol and had given her one as a gift. That made her shudder. "Why is this here? What does it mean?" she murmured, almost unaware that she was speaking to herself. The connection she felt upon seeing that symbol awakened memories of conversations they had, secrets they shared, and now a sense of unease flooded her being. As if Michael was trying to send her a message even after his departure. Sarah shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. "I must uncover the truth," she decided as she stepped away from the grave. The way back home seemed longer than usual, each step heavy with the weight she carried in her heart. Her mind was filled with questions. What did Michael know? What had he discovered about Jessica that he didn't have time to share? Upon arriving home, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by furniture that, somehow, felt emptier without her son's presence. She remembered the letter she found and the enigmatic words that had caused her unease. "We need to talk about Jessica," he had said in one of the passages. What did that mean? Sarah decided she needed to investigate her daughter-in-law's past. With a determined air, she picked up the phone and began to search. "Maybe I'll find something. Any detail that could help me," she thought as she typed Jessica's name. Information began to emerge. Social media profiles, photos, accounts, but nothing seemed to connect Jessica to anything that could justify her concerns. "It's as if she were a shadow," she murmured, frustration showing in her voice. Sarah's determination did not wane. "I will find out what is happening," she promised herself. With that, she stood up and began to organize Michael's old photo albums, hoping to find something that would lead her down a new path. Whatever was hidden, she was determined to uncover. After all, it was her son's memory that was at stake, and Sarah would not rest until the truth was revealed. Sarah stood in the small room that once belonged to Michael, surrounded by memories that danced in the shadows. Familiar scent of her son still lingered in the air, and each object seemed to tell a unique story. Her heart, however, throbbed, with a mix of sadness and determination. After the funeral, the image of Jessica laughing uncontrollably still echoed in her mind, like an open wound. The daughter-in-law she had welcomed like a daughter was now becoming a dark mystery. As she examined Michael's belongings, her fingers brushed against a locked wooden box, very similar to the one found in the cemetery, hidden beneath a pile of books. Sarah's heart raced. What could be inside it? With a slight tremor, she crouched down and pulled the box towards her. The wood was cold, and the lock seemed to challenge her curiosity. "What did you keep, my son?" she whispered, almost as if she expected an answer. Memories of Michael as a child flooded her mind. He had always been a curious, questioning boy. Sarah recalled a special moment when they explored the attic of their home, discovering family relics and creating fantastic stories about each one. "Sarah, are you okay?" Jessica's voice interrupted her daydream. She stood in the doorway, with an expression that Sarah couldn't decipher. "I've been thinking, maybe we should talk about the things that are happening." "Talk?" Sarah repeated, not hiding her disbelief. "About what exactly? About your insensitive laughter at the funeral? Or about the fact that I'm trying to cope with the loss of my son, while you seem more concerned about appearances?" Jessica hesitated, soon regained her composure. "I understand you're going through a tough time, but I'm suffering too. Michael meant everything to me." Her voice had a tone of desperation that didn't convince Sarah. "Meant everything to you? Or was he just a means to achieve your goals?" Sarah shot back, anger rising in her chest. She looked at the box again, thinking that perhaps the answers lay within it. The daughter-in-law stepped closer, trying to place her hand on Sarah's shoulder, but was brushed away. "Don't touch me," Sarah exclaimed. "I don't trust you, Jessica. Not after what happened." Jessica took a step back, clearly offended. "You don't have the right to accuse me. I truly loved Michael." "Love isn't laughing at your husband's funeral," Sarah retorted, her eyes fixed on her daughter-in-law. "I don't know who you really are, but I'm determined to find out." With that, Jessica left the room and Sarah turned her attention to the box, ignoring Jessica's protests. She needed to find out what her son had hidden. With a surge of courage, she began to search for something to open the box. The silence between the two became tense, and Sarah felt time stretching, laden with unspoken secret. Finally, she found a small metal tool she used to open letters. She used it to force the lock, and after a few moments of effort, she heard a satisfying click. The lid slowly opened, revealing its contents. Inside, there were old photos, some in black and white, showing Michael at various stages of his life. But among the photos were also documents and letters that seemed much more significant. "This is it or never," she murmured to herself as she searched for the key she had kept next to the box. As the lock turned, a mix of anxiety and anticipation took hold of her. Inside the box were documents, photos, and a series of letters that revealed moments from Michael's life, also clues about Jessica's. Some photos showed Michael at parties, always surrounded by friends and laughter. There was one that caught her attention, an image of Jessica at a party, talking intimately with an unknown man. Sarah furrowed her brow. "Who is this man? What were you hiding, my son?" she murmured, feeling a wave of sadness and anger swell inside her. The letters contained excerpts that seemed to be warnings about untrustworthy people, but also notes about how he always cared about his mother's happiness. Sarah's mind began to race. If this man was present in Michael and Jessica's lives, maybe he knows something. I need to find him. The idea excited her, and as the sun began to set, she grabbed her phone and started searching for information about the parties Michael used to attend. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. She found a letter that said, "Dear Mom, if you are reading this, it's because I am no longer here. I don't want you to suffer. I always did my best to protect you, even when you weren't aware. Jessica is not who you think she is. I knew her in many ways, and deep down she has a side you could never imagine. Please stay alert, and don't fully trust her. I loved her. There were things surrounding her, things I couldn't reveal. I hope that upon finding this, you have the strength to move on." Tears began to slide down Sarah's face as her son's words enveloped her like a heavy cloak. The pain mixed with fury as she realized that Michael felt the need to protect her even after his death. But there was more. At the back of the vault, financial documents were stacked. Sarah carefully removed them, and upon examining them, realized they were bank statements and contracts that made no sense. "Why did you do this, Michael?" he thought as she analyzed the paper. But then, something else caught her attention. A small, golden key, shining under the dim light coming through the window. It was a key that seemed to belong to nothing she knew. Her heart raced. What could that key open? With her mind racing, Sarah decided she needed answers. Anger and pain began to transform into determination. She could no longer allow Jessica's shadow to loom over her life. What else had Michael hidden? What did those documents mean? And the key? I will discover the truth, she murmured, as a promise to herself. Sarah went down the stairs and headed to the living room, where Michael's portrait watched her with a serene expression. I will do this for you, my love. I will find out who Jessica really is. The next day, Sarah decided to visit the cafe where many of Michael's friends used to gather. Upon entering, the smell of fresh coffee welcomed her, but the weight of sorrow was still present. She approached the counter and ordered a coffee. You know Jessica? She asked the barista, a young woman with brown hair and a gentle smile. Yes, I know her. She is married to Michael. Actually, I'm looking for information about him, about their life together. The barista hesitated for a moment. I don't want to intrude, but I saw Jessica talking to a man during the funeral. Seemed like they were exchanging information. The man wasn't on the guest list. Sarah's heart raced. Do you remember the man? He was tall, had dark hair and an intense look. Couldn't hear what they were saying, but her expression, it looked worried. Thank you, Sarah said, feeling she was getting closer to discovering the truth. Determined to find that man, Sarah went home and started searching on social media. After a few hours of research, she found a lead profile that seemed to match the description. The name was David, and looking at his photos, she noticed he had many mutual friends with Michael. Who are you, David? She whispered, as determination consumed her. He was involved with Jessica in some way. She needed to know what was happening. That night, Sarah received an anonymous message on her cell phone. You don't know who you're dealing with. Jessica is not who you think she is. Sarah's heart raced with the message, and the urgency to uncover the truth motivated her even more. She was willing to face any obstacles that came her way, as Michael's memory deserved her fight. Sarah was determined to find answers to the questions that haunted her. Who was the unknown man in the photos? What was Jessica's true connection to him? Sarah couldn't get Jessica's worried expression out of her head while talking to that man at Michael's funeral. Determined to know more, Sarah decided to contact an old colleague of Michael's who knew his social circle well. With this friend's help, Sarah was able to gather valuable information about David. He was known for his manipulative tactics and for getting involved with wealthy women to later take financial advantage of. As she deepened her investigation, with Michael's help, Sarah managed to access the computers and discovered emails and messages between Jessica and David, revealing a secret relationship. The exchanged messages made it clear that Jessica planned to pursue a relationship with David as soon as Michael was out of the way. Worse still, the two discussed details on how to pull off a scam on Michael's business, taking advantage of the mourning situation and the trust Sarah had placed in Jessica. In one of the emails, Sarah found a detailed plan on how Jessica and David intended to manipulate Michael's documents and assets to siphon off money and control his businesses. The goal was clear: to leave Sarah helpless and take over the family's finances. With this evidence in hand, Sarah felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could Jessica deceive Michael and the entire family in such a calculating manner? Determined to protect her son's memory and ensure that justice was served, Sarah gathered all the evidence and approached her lawyer, David, who was already helping her with the case against Jessica. David, the lawyer, was shocked by the revelations. He assured Sarah that he would take all necessary steps to expose the truth and ensure that Jessica and David faced the legal consequences of their actions. Together, they prepared a solid case, presenting all the evidence of manipulation, fraud, and conspiracy. The golden key had now become a symbol of hope and revelation. Sarah knew that by uncovering the secrets, she would not only honor her son's memory, but also reclaim her own life, which had been shattered by pain and betrayal. She drove to Jessica's house, a home that had once seemed welcoming, now emanated an aura of treachery. Upon entering, Sarah found Jessica in the living room, lying on the couch, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The woman seemed carefree, as if nothing was happening. Jessica, Sarah began, her voice firm but controlled. We need to talk. Jessica looked up, pretending to be surprised. Hi, mother-in-law. What brings you here so early? Don't play games with me, Sarah replied with a tone of reproach. I know what you did. I found Michael's letter and, well, I found this too. She held up. Sarah laughed, a laugh that held no joy. Look around you, Jessica. What are you trying to hide? I know you manipulated my son, and now that he's not here anymore, you think you can get away with it? Jessica began to move nervously, her smile fading. You don't understand, Sarah. I did all of this for love. Michael needed me. Love? If this is love, then I don't want to know what you're capable of. Sarah shot back, stepping toward Jessica. Michael was worried about you. He told me about your lies and your manipulations. You're not in control anymore. You don't know anything. Jessica screamed, her voice rising in desperation. I did what I had to do to keep our family together. He was about to leave me, and I wasn't going to let that happen. Sarah felt anger pulse through her veins, but also a deep sadness. You pushed him away from me. He was afraid of you. I have the proof I need to expose you once and for all. Jessica began to back away, but Sarah followed her. You can't escape this. Michael left everything he had to me, and you won't have access to anything. He knew who you really were. You can't do this, Jessica pleaded, the mask of confidence starting to crack. I'm your daughter-in-law. I'm family. Family doesn't act like you acted, Sarah replied coldly, and you will pay for all of that. Soon, the atmosphere in the room became oppressive, and the tension was palpable. Sarah felt her hands sweating as she prepared to reveal the final bombshell. I went to the bank today. With this key, I was able to access Michael's account. He transferred all the assets to me. You have nothing left. Jessica's expression turned to absolute panic. You can't do this. I will sue you. Sue? Why? Sarah questioned, with a bitter laugh. You have no legal basis, Jessica. What you did is fraud. I will turn all of this over to the police and you will be arrested. Jessica, realizing there was no way out, tried one last move. You won't do this, Sarah. Think of everything we've been through together. Think of Michael. I am thinking of him, and that's why I can't let you continue to manipulate and hurt the people he loved. Sarah spoke with conviction, feeling stronger than ever. Jessica, now completely out of control, began to scream. But Sarah simply turned and walked away, leaving her daughter-in-law behind, lost in her own lies. As she left the house, Sarah felt a huge weight lift off her shoulders. She had exposed Jessica, and now, finally, she could honor her son's memory in a way he deserved. The path to peace was beginning to open before her, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt a spark of hope. In court, the evidence was presented clearly and convincingly. Jessica and David were confronted with the truth, and Jessica's mask of innocence fell before everyone's eyes. She and David were sued for fraud and conspiracy, and justice was served. Sarah, at the end of the entire legal battle, felt relieved for having protected Michael's memory and ensured that his legacy was preserved. Although the pain of losing her son would never disappear, she found comfort in knowing that she had unmasked those who tried to take advantage of the situation. This discovery about David and Jessica's betrayal further strengthened Sarah's determination to live her life with integrity and courage, honoring Michael's legacy every day. From that day on, Sarah decided she would dedicate her life to helping others who had gone through similar situations. She began volunteering at a grief support center, using her experience to offer comfort and strength to other mothers who had lost their children. Each story she heard, each hand she held, reminded her that even in pain, there was an opportunity to grow and connect with others. Jessica, on the other hand, disappeared from Sarah's life. Without the financial support and manipulation she had expected, she had to face the consequences of her actions. And Sarah, watching her leave, knew she had won not just a legal battle, but also a personal battle of strength and resilience. The sun shone once again in Sarah's life. She knew that the journey had not been easy, but each challenge had made her stronger. With Michael always in her heart, Sarah continued to live with courage and hope, knowing that truth and love would always prevail. If you enjoyed this story and want to follow more exciting narratives, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. It helps us bring more amazing content to you. Leave your thoughts in the comments and let us know what was the most impactful part for you. Until next time.